She was just a waitress clearing tables when she overheard the conversation. The Russian encryption was wrong. Amateur mistakes. She laughed softly and corrected it without thinking. What she didn't know, the man in the expensive suit was a mafia boss who trusted no one, built his empire on secrets. And she'd just become the only person he couldn't let walk away. The crystal chandeliers of Rosso's cast warm light across white tablecloths, making the upscale Italian restaurant feel intimate despite its size. Lorenzo De Luca adjusted his tie and studied the menu he'd memorized years ago, back when this place was just a dream sketched on a cocktail napkin. Now he owned it, along with half the buildings in downtown Chicago. "The osso buco is excellent tonight, sir," a waitress appeared at his elbow, her voice pleasant but unremarkable. Lorenzo didn't look up. Waitresses came and went. His attention stayed fixed on the two men across from him, the Petrov brothers, arms dealers pretending to be importers of fine textiles. "Just water," Lorenzo said. "I'm waiting for someone." The waitress left. Lorenzo touched his ear, activating the nearly invisible device nestled there. "Alpha team in position," came the voice in Russian, crackling through the earpiece. Target approaching from the north entrance. Lorenzo kept his face neutral. His three associates at nearby tables wouldn't react either. They looked like ordinary diners, a young couple sharing wine, an older businessman reading a newspaper. All were armed. All were listening to the same encrypted frequency. "Copy that," Lorenzo murmured in Russian, pretending to clear his throat. "Maintain visual protocol." The Petrov brothers arrived exactly on time, which meant they were either professionals or scared. Lorenzo rose, shaking hands with practiced warmth. Dmitry Petrov had the build of a boxer gone soft. His younger brother Alexei looked hungry, the dangerous kind of hungry. "Gentlemen, please sit." They ordered drinks. Lorenzo ordered nothing. He never ate during business. "So," Dmitry began, his English thick with a Moscow accent. "You are interested in our textiles." "Very interested," Lorenzo said smoothly. "Especially the shipment arriving Tuesday." That was the real meeting. 30 kilograms of unregistered firearms hidden in a container of silk scarves. Lorenzo didn't need the guns. He needed to know who else wanted them. 3 rival families had been sniffing around the Petrov operation, and Lorenzo wanted names. His earpiece crackled again. "Secondary team reports movement in the kitchen. 1 unknown. Female. Non-threat." Lorenzo nodded imperceptibly. The kitchen staff had been vetted. Some noise was normal. "The price is as discussed?" Alexei leaned forward, his eyes too eager. "Depends on quality," Lorenzo said. "I'll need verification of the merchandise before we." "Delta unit, confirm encryption on channel 7, the voice said in his ear. Russian words flowing together. "Potverdit shifrovany na kanal sem." Behind him, someone laughed. It was soft, musical, the kind of laugh that shouldn't have registered at all in the ambient noise of clinking silverware and murmured conversations. Except Lorenzo heard it clearly. And more importantly, he heard what came after. "They're using the wrong encryption term. Amateurs." The voice was female, quiet, almost playful. She was speaking to someone else, probably another waitress. "It's potvrzdeny, not potverdit." That's like saying to confirm instead of confirmation, totally different protocol usage. Lorenzo's hand froze halfway to his water glass. His heart, which rarely exceeded 60 beats per minute even during shootouts, kicked against his ribs. Nobody outside his inner circle knew he used Russian codes. Nobody. It was the one language he trusted because so few people in Chicago's underworld spoke it fluently, and even fewer understood military-grade encryption terminology. Yet somewhere behind him, a waitress had just corrected his security team's grammar. In Russian, while explaining cryptographic protocol differences. "Mr. Russo?" Dimitri's voice pulled him back. Lorenzo was using the alias tonight, Vincent Russo, independent investor. "Is something wrong?" "No," Lorenzo's voice came out steady despite the alarm bells clanging in his skull. "Continue." But he couldn't focus. His mind raced through possibilities. Federal agent? No, they'd never blow cover over grammar. Rival family's plant? Possible, but sloppy. Random coincidence? In Chicago's most expensive restaurant, where reservations took months. He touched his ear twice, the signal for his team to switch channels. They'd rotate through backup frequencies now, standard protocol when security was compromised. We can provide samples, Alexei was saying. Tomorrow night, the warehouse on. Delta to Alpha. A new voice crackled in Lorenzo's ear, now speaking English. That waitress. The one who spoke Russian. Should we detain for questioning? Lorenzo's jaw tightened. His instinct screamed yes. Anyone who could identify his encryption methods was either an asset or a lethal threat. But this was Rosso's. His restaurant. Detaining staff would draw attention, raise questions. The Petrovs would spook. The deal would collapse. And something else nagged at him, the way she'd said it. Amateurs. Not alarmed. Not calculating. Just casually amused, like she'd overheard someone mispronounce croissant. Negative, Lorenzo murmured. Observe only. He forced himself back into the meeting. The Petrovs outlined their terms. Lorenzo countered. They haggled like merchants at a bazaar, dancing around the real subject, weapons that could start a war or end one, depending on whose hands held them. 20 minutes later, they shook hands. The deal was set. Lorenzo stood, buttoning his suit jacket. Gentlemen, a pleasure. They left. His security team would follow them, make sure they weren't meeting anyone else tonight. But Lorenzo didn't leave. He sat back down and waited. The restaurant was still half full, the dinner rush winding down. Lorenzo watched the waitstaff move through the room with practiced efficiency. There, the blonde carrying a tray of desserts. There, the older woman refilling water glasses. And there, dark hair pulled into a practical bun. Maybe late 20s. She moved with the same efficiency as the others, but something was different. The way she scanned the room. Not servile, but assessing. Like she was reading people instead of serving them. Their eyes met across the restaurant. She didn't look away. Didn't startle. Just held his gaze for 3 seconds, then continued toward the kitchen. Lorenzo felt something unfamiliar stir in his chest. Not attraction, not yet. Something sharper. Curiosity. He pulled out his phone and texted his head of security. Background check. Waitress. Dark hair, Section 4. I want everything. The response came immediately. On it, boss. Lorenzo stood and approached the hostess stand. Excuse me. The waitress in Section 4, is she available? I'd like to request her service. The hostess smiled. Of course, Mr. DeLuca. I'll send Clara right over. Clara. Lorenzo returned to his table and ordered a coffee he didn't want. Within 2 minutes, she appeared. You wanted to see me? Her voice was calm, professional. Up close, he could see she had gray eyes, unusual, striking. Yes, Lorenzo said. Sit. Her eyebrow lifted slightly. I'm working. I own the restaurant. It wasn't quite true. His name wasn't on the deed, but close enough. Sit. She did, but her posture stayed guarded. Smart. You speak Russian, Lorenzo said. I speak 5 languages, Clara replied evenly. Russian's just one of them. Where did you learn encryption terminology? Now he saw it, a flicker of something in those gray eyes. Not fear. Calculation. I read a lot, she said. Try again. She studied him for a long moment. Then she smiled, and it was nothing like the pleasant waitress smile from before. This one had teeth. Some people speak to hide, Clara said softly. I listen to survive. Lorenzo leaned back, reassessing everything. This wasn't a random waitress. This was something else entirely. What's your last name, Clara? Morrison, she said. Clara Morrison. And before you ask, yes, I know who you are, Mr. DeLuca. The name hit him like cold water. Morrison. Danny Morrison had been a small-time runner for the Yakovich family. Got himself killed 6 months ago in a deal gone wrong. Danny Morrison's sister, Lorenzo said slowly. Was, Clara corrected.
He's dead.
But I'm guessing you knew that. She stood before he could respond, smoothing her apron. Your coffee's getting cold, she said. Will there be anything else? Lorenzo watched her walk away, his mind already 3 moves ahead. Dangerous, his instincts whispered. Very dangerous. But also, and this was what made him reach for his phone again, useful. He typed a new message. Cancel that background check. I'll handle this personally. Then he left a $100 tip on a $10 coffee and walked out into the Chicago night, already planning his next move. Behind him, Clara Morrison picked up the bill and the tip. She didn't smile. She just folded the money carefully and slipped it into her pocket, her expression unreadable. The game, she knew, had just begun. Lorenzo didn't go home that night. Instead, he sat in his car across the street from Rosso's, watching through tinted windows as the restaurant's lights dimmed one by one. Staff filtered out the back entrance in 2s and 3s, pulling jackets tight against the October wind. Clara emerged alone at 11:47 p.m. She walked 3 blocks to the bus stop, her pace steady, her head up. Not the walk of someone afraid. Lorenzo noted everything. The way she checked her phone twice, the quick glance over her shoulder at the corner of State and Madison. Someone had taught her to be careful. Danny, Lorenzo thought. Her brother taught her to watch her back. His phone buzzed. Marco, his head of security, calling. Boss, you said to hold the background check, but I got curious. You need to hear this. Talk. Clara Morrison, 27. Linguistics degree from Northwestern, full scholarship. Graduated top 5%. Brother Danny got mixed up with the Yakovich family 2 years ago. She tried to get him out. Marco paused. There's more. After Danny died, the Yakoviches claimed he owed them 30 grand. They've been pressuring her for payment. Lorenzo's grip tightened on the steering wheel. How much has she paid? Everything she has. Still owes them 18,000. Word is they're getting impatient. The Yakovich family. Russian mob. Old school brutal. They'd kill Clara without hesitation if she missed payments. Keep tabs on her building, Lorenzo said. But stay invisible. I don't want her spooked. Boss, is this about what she overheard? Lorenzo watched Clara board the bus, her silhouette disappearing behind dirty windows. Maybe, he said. Or maybe I just hate the Yakoviches. He hung up and drove home, but sleep didn't come easy. The next evening, Lorenzo returned to Rosso's. Different table. Same section. Clara spotted him immediately. He saw recognition flash across her face, followed by something that looked like resignation. She approached with a water pitcher and that same professional mask. Good evening. Will you be dining alone tonight? That depends, Lorenzo said in flawless Mandarin, on whether the service is better than last night. Clara didn't miss a beat. She responded in the same language, her accent Beijing perfect. The service is always excellent here. Perhaps your expectations were unclear. Lorenzo switched to Italian. Then let me be clear. I'd like your recommendations. For food, she replied in Italian, her tone suggesting she knew damn well he wasn't talking about food. Or for entertainment. Both. She set down the water glass with precise care. Back to English now. The braised lamb is exceptional. As for entertainment, I believe you provide your own. Despite himself, Lorenzo smiled. You're well informed. I work in a restaurant owned by people who think they're invisible. Clara pulled out her order pad. You hear things. Like encryption protocols? Like I said, you hear things. Her gray eyes met his. Are you ordering, or are we continuing this dance? Lorenzo ordered the lamb. When it arrived, he ate slowly, thinking. Clara moved through her section with practiced efficiency, but he caught her watching him twice. Not nervous glances, assessments. She was trying to figure out his angle. Good. That meant she was smart enough to know he had won. When she brought the check, Lorenzo spoke quietly. Your brother's debt. The Yakoviches. 18,000 inch. Clara's hand froze. Just for a second. I don't know what you're talking about. Yes, you do. Lorenzo pulled out a pen, wrote something on the napkin. That's my private number. You call it, the debt disappears. All of it. Nothing's free. You're right. He folded the napkin and set it aside, pulling out a second item, a black business card, blank except for a silver symbol embossed in the corner. It looked like overlapping circles, geometric and precise. This comes with conditions. Clara picked up the card, turning it over. What is this? A test. Lorenzo stood, buttoning his jacket. If you're as smart as I think you are, you'll figure it out. If you do, it leads somewhere. An address. And if I don't want to go, then you keep living with the Yakoviches breathing down your neck. He met her eyes. But I don't think that's who you are, Clara Morrison. I think you're tired of running from your brother's mistakes. He left before she could respond, dropping $200 on a $30 meal. Clara waited until her shift ended. In the back office, she locked the door and studied the card under the desk lamp. The symbol was familiar. She'd seen it before in one of Danny's old notebooks. He'd been obsessed with codes toward the end, trying to prove he was smart enough for the big leagues. She pulled out her phone and photographed the symbol, then opened a translation app. Not for languages, for patterns. The circles weren't random. They overlapped at specific points, creating smaller shapes within. If you followed the intersections clockwise. It's coordinates, she whispered. She traced the pattern with her finger, converting the geometric relationships to numbers. 10 minutes later, she had it, a longitude and latitude. She plugged them into maps. An address appeared, 1247, West Erie Street. De Luca Enterprises. Clara sat back, her heart pounding. Lorenzo de Luca wasn't just testing her intelligence. He was recruiting her. But for what? She thought about Danny, about the way he'd died, beaten and left in an alley because he'd tried to skim from the Yakoviches. About the debt collectors who showed up at her apartment, their smiles never reaching their eyes. About the $18,000 that kept growing with interest. She could keep waitressing, keep scraping together payments, keep hoping they'd let her live once the debt was paid, though everyone knew the Yakoviches never really let anyone go. Or she could decode this card and walk into whatever trap or opportunity Lorenzo was offering. Clara looked at the symbol again. Some people speak to hide, she'd told him. I listened to survive. Maybe it was time to stop just surviving. She grabbed her jacket and walked out into the night, the black card pressed between her fingers like a talisman. The address burned in her mind, 1247, West Erie Street. Tomorrow, she'd find out what Lorenzo de Luca really wanted. And maybe, just maybe, she'd find a way out of the life Danny's mistakes had trapped her in. The city lights blurred past her bus window as she headed home, already planning her next move in a game she didn't fully understand. But she was learning. And Clara Morrison had always been a fast learner. The building at 1247, West Erie Street didn't look like a mob headquarters. Clara stood across the street at 9 a.m. sharp, studying the sleek glass and steel structure that rose 12 stories above the surrounding neighborhood. A tasteful bronze plaque beside the entrance read, De Luca Enterprises, Consultancy and Acquisitions. Consultancy. Right. She'd done her research last night, sitting in her cramped studio apartment with her laptop. De Luca Enterprises owned dozens of legitimate businesses, restaurants, real estate holdings, a private security firm. On paper, Lorenzo de Luca was a successful businessman. Clean tax records, charitable donations, Chamber of Commerce member. But Clara had also found the other stories, the ones that never made official news. Whispers on forums where people discussed Chicago's real power structure. How De Luca Enterprises was connected to the sudden closure of rival businesses. How Lorenzo de Luca could make problems disappear, along with the people who caused them. How he controlled territory from the Loop to the South Side without ever firing a shot in public. The city's silent power broker. The man who ran an empire from behind a veneer of legitimacy. And she was about to walk into his headquarters voluntarily. "You're an idiot," she muttered to herself. But the alternative was the Yakoviches. Their last visit had been 3 days ago. Two men who'd stood too close in her apartment hallway, reminding her that patience had limits. That Danny's debt was her responsibility now. That accidents happened to pretty girls who didn't pay. Clara touched the black card in her pocket, then crossed the street. The lobby was all marble and minimalist art. A security desk stood between her and the elevators, manned by 2 guards who looked more military than mall cop. They watched her approach with the kind of attention that made her spine straighten. "I have an appointment," she said, keeping her voice steady. The guard on the left, buzz cut, scar through his eyebrow, raised an eyebrow. "Name? Clara Morrison." "I was given this," she held up the card. Recognition flickered across his face. He picked up a phone, spoke quietly, then nodded. "12th floor. Mr. DeLuca is expecting you." The elevator ride felt like descending into deep water. Clara watched the numbers climb, her reflection staring back from polished steel. She'd worn her best interview outfit, dark slacks, white blouse, blazer. Professional but not trying too hard. Though she suspected Lorenzo saw right through whatever she wore. The 12th floor opened into a reception area that screamed old money. Dark wood paneling, leather furniture, oil paintings that were probably originals. A woman sat behind a glass desk, her expression polite but calculating. "Ms. Morrison, Mr. DeLuca will see you now." She gestured to double doors on the right. "Straight through." Clara's hand trembled slightly as she reached for the handle. She forced it steady. "You decoded the card. You came this far. Don't show weakness now." Lorenzo's office was a corner suite with floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking Chicago. He stood by the glass, hands in his pockets, silhouetted against the morning light. He'd traded last night's suit for something more casual, dark slacks, black shirt, no tie. He looked younger like this. Less businessman, more predator. "You came," he said without turning around. "You knew I would." "I hoped." Now he turned, and Clara saw something in his expression that surprised her. Respect. Most people can't decode that symbol. The ones who do usually don't have the courage to show up. Or the desperation. Honesty. "I like that." Lorenzo moved to his desk, gestured to a chair. "Sit." Clara remained standing. "What is this? Really? A job interview? For what?" "I'm a waitress with a linguistics degree and a dead brother's debt. What could you possibly want from me?" Lorenzo pulled a file from his desk drawer and opened it. Even upside down, Clara could see it was about her: transcripts, employment records, photos. "Northwestern full-ride scholarship," he read. "Fluent in 5 languages: English, Russian, Mandarin, Italian, and Arabic. Graduated with honors. Applied to the State Department's Foreign Service program." He looked up. "They rejected you. Want to know why?" Clara's jaw tightened. "I know why. Danny's arrest record. They couldn't risk someone with family ties to organized crime." Lorenzo closed the file. "Their loss. My opportunity." "To do what?" "I have a problem." He walked around the desk, leaning against it. Close enough that Clara could smell his cologne. Something expensive and understated. "Someone in my organization is leaking information. Coded messages, mostly in Russian, going to a competitor. I need someone who can trace the leak." "You have people for that." "I have soldiers. I need a linguist. Someone who understands not just the words, but the patterns, the mistakes." His eyes locked on hers. "Someone who can hear a conversation and know when something's wrong." Clara's mind raced. The encryption error. Last night. You didn't just make a mistake. You were testing your own team. "And you caught it immediately." Lorenzo smiled, and it was sharp. "Do you know how valuable that makes you? Do you know how dangerous this makes you?" The smile faded. "Yes. Which is why I'm offering you protection along with payment. Work for me, temporarily, just until we find the mole, and your brother's debt disappears. All of it. Plus 50,000 for your time." 50,000. More than she made in a year at Rosso's. And if I say no, then you walk out of here. No hard feelings, Lorenzo's voice dropped. But the Yakoviches don't stop. And eventually, Clara, they'll stop asking nicely. She hated that he was right. Hated that Danny had put her in this position. Hated that she was even considering working for a man who made his living through violence and fear. But she also hated the fear that woke her at 3 a.m., wondering if tonight was the night the Yakoviches ran out of patience. Why should I trust you? You shouldn't, Lorenzo said bluntly. I'm not a good man, Clara. I've done things that would make you run screaming. But I don't hurt people who work for me. And I don't lie about payment. Clara looked out at Chicago spread below them, her city, full of people just trying to survive. People like her, trapped between bad choices and worse ones. Danny had chosen this world, and it had killed him. But maybe she could choose it on her own terms. Use it to finally break free. How long? She asked. 2 weeks. Maybe 3-inch. And the debt. Gone the moment you say yes. I'll have my people handle it today. Clara took a breath, feeling like she was standing at a cliff's edge. Some people speak to hide. I listen to survive. I want it in writing, she said. The debt cancellation. The payment. All of it. Lorenzo's smile returned, genuine this time. Smart. Marco will draw up the paperwork. He extended his hand. Do we have a deal? Clara stared at his hand, strong, scarred across the knuckles, the hand of a man who'd built an empire through force and will. Then she took it. We have a deal. His grip was firm, warm. Welcome to DeLuca Enterprises, Clara. Your first assignment starts tomorrow. As she left the office, contract signed and tucked in her bag, Clara couldn't shake the feeling that she'd just made a bargain with the devil. But maybe, just this once, the devil was her only way out of hell. Clara arrived at DeLuca Enterprises at 8 a.m. the next morning, wearing the same blazer and carrying a leather notebook she'd owned since college. The receptionist, whose name was Angela, she'd learned, smiled and pointed toward a different corridor. Conference room B. Mr. DeLuca is waiting. The conference room had no windows. Just a long table, 6 leather chairs, and 3 computer monitors mounted on the far wall. Lorenzo stood reviewing something on a tablet, dressed in a charcoal suit that probably cost more than Clara's monthly rent. He looked up when she entered. Coffee. Black, please. He poured from a carafe on the side table, handed her a cup. Their fingers brushed. Clara pretended not to notice the spark of something. Thank you for the Yakovich situation, she said quietly. Your people called them off last night. I keep my promises. Lorenzo gestured to a chair. Sit. We have work to do. But he didn't sit across from her like a boss conducting a briefing. Instead, he pulled out the chair beside hers, setting his tablet between them. The gesture felt deliberate, equals examining evidence, not employer and employee. Before we start, Lorenzo said, I need to be honest about something. Clara raised an eyebrow. Honest? That's a first for this building, I'd imagine. A slight smile. Fair. But here it is. You weren't supposed to hear that message at Rosso's. My team was sloppy, got comfortable because we've used Russian codes for 3 years without incident. Then you walked by and exposed the flaw in 30 seconds. And you decided to hire me instead of silence me. I decided you were more valuable alive and working than dead and wasted. He met her eyes. I built this organization on control, Clara. Information control. Territory control. But I'm not stupid enough to throw away brilliance when it falls in my lap. Maybe you overhearing that conversation was the best thing that could have happened. There was something in his voice, not quite vulnerability, but close. Like he was acknowledging a weakness. So, what exactly am I looking for? Clara asked. Lorenzo tapped the tablet. A series of audio files appeared on the screen. These are intercepted communications from the past 6 weeks. All in Russian. All coded. Someone in my organization is feeding intelligence to the Kozlov family, my biggest competitor. Clara knew that name. Viktor Kozlov ran the Russian operations on the north side. Vicious, territorial, and recently expanding into Lorenzo's territory. You think the mole is feeding them information about your operations? I know they are. 3 shipments intercepted. 2 deals that fell through at the last second. And last month, an ambush that killed one of my drivers. Lorenzo's voice hardened. Someone's talking. I need to know who. He pulled up the first file. Start here. These messages reference a package arriving at the port. Standard smuggling language, but something's off about the phrasing. Clara put in earbuds and listened. 2 voices speaking rapid Russian, discussing times, locations, cargo weights. On the surface, nothing unusual. But then she heard it.
Wait.
Go back 15 seconds. She replayed the section.
There.
He says, "Konturner probudit," but uses the wrong aspect of the verb. It's grammatically correct, but unnatural. Like someone translating from English instead of thinking in Russian. Lorenzo leaned closer, studying her face. Meaning? Meaning whoever sent this message isn't a native Russian speaker. They're competent, but they learned it academically, not culturally. Clara's mind raced. How many people in your organization speak Russian? 4 on the communications team. Plus Marco, my head of security, and 2 field operatives. I need their backgrounds. Education, where they learned Russian, family history. Lorenzo pulled up files on each person. Clara studied them carefully, making notes. This one, she pointed to a name. Alexei Volkov. Says he's from Moscow. Immigrated at 12-inch. He's been with me for 5 years. Completely loyal. Maybe. But look at his phrasing patterns in these intercepts. Clara pulled up 3 more recordings. He uses formal constructions. Military style. But a kid from Moscow would use street Russian, informal contractions. This sounds like someone who learned from textbooks and military translators. Lorenzo stared at the files, then at Clara. Are you saying Alexei's identity is fake? I'm saying someone trained him to sound Russian. And they did a good job. Good enough to fool you for 5 years. But language has fingerprints. You can't hide where you really learn to speak. For a long moment, Lorenzo was silent. Then he laughed, short, surprised. I've had linguists look at these files. Professional cryptographers. None of them caught that. Because they were looking at the code, not the culture. Clara pulled up another file. Language isn't just words, Mr. DeLuca. It's identity. Context. Every choice a speaker makes tells you something about who they are. Lorenzo, he said suddenly. What? Call me Lorenzo. If we're going to work together, the formality is unnecessary. He turned his chair to face her fully. You see patterns other people miss. That's rare. Valuable. Clara felt heat rise to her cheeks and pushed it down. I just pay attention.
No.
You understand something most people don't. That communication is about what's hidden as much as what's said. He paused. Your brother.
Danny.
Is that how you knew he was in trouble? The question caught her off guard. What do you mean? You said you listened to survive. I'm guessing you heard something in the way he talked. Knew he was lying about where the money went. Clara's throat tightened. He started using different words. Phrases that weren't his. He was trying to sound tougher, more connected. Like he was playing a role. She looked away. I tried to warn him. He didn't listen. The Yakoviches recruited him as a runner, Lorenzo said quietly. Then when a shipment went missing, they blamed Danny and demanded payment for the loss. Standard practice for them. Target someone vulnerable, bleed them dry, then kill them when they can't pay. Clara's head snapped up. How do you know that? Because the Yakoviches and I have history. And because Danny's debt. Lorenzo's eyes darkened. It was connected to the same network that's leaking my information. Viktor Kozlov and the Yakovich family are partners. They've been trying to take my territory for a year. The room felt suddenly colder. So my brother died because of this. Turf war. Your brother died because he got caught in the middle of something bigger than he understood. And the people who killed him are the same ones trying to destroy me. Lorenzo's voice softened. I'm sorry, Clara. Really? But that's also why you're here. This isn't just about finding a mole anymore. It's about taking down the people who took Danny from you. Clara's hands trembled. Rage and grief warred in her chest. Then let's find them, she said, her voice steel. All of them. Lorenzo nodded slowly. Then we start with Alexei Volkov. If he's the leak, we trace him back to whoever placed him in my organization. We build the case carefully, methodically. And when we have proof. Lorenzo's smile was cold. Then I handle it my way. 3 days became 5. 5 became 7. Clara stopped going home at night. There was a spare office on the 11th floor, smaller than Lorenzo's, but with a couch and a private bathroom. Someone brought her changes of clothes from her apartment. Someone else brought meals at odd hours when she forgot to eat. She barely noticed. The work consumed her. This one, Clara pulled up an audio file at 2 a.m. on the 4th night, her eyes burning from screen glare. Listen to how he pronounces meeting. The stress is wrong. Native speakers stress the first syllable harder. Lorenzo sat beside her, tie loosened, shirt sleeves rolled up. He'd abandoned his office 3 hours ago to work directly with her. Play it again.
She did.
Their heads bent close over the tablet, almost touching. You're right, he murmured. How did I miss this for 5 years? Because you trusted him. Trust makes us blind, Clara leaned back, rubbing her temples. Alexei's not just feeding information to Kozlov. He's translating intelligence both ways. Look at these timestamps. Every message to Kozlov is followed within 2 hours by a message back to your team. He's playing both sides. And getting paid by both. Probably Clara pulled up a financial tracking program Lorenzo had given her access to. If we could see his banking records. Already on it, Lorenzo made a call, spoke briefly in Italian. When he hung up, he was smiling. Marco will have them by morning. He has friends at the bank. Friends or leverage? Does it matter? Clara met his eyes. Actually, yes. If you're blackmailing bank employees, that makes them vulnerable to counter-blackmail, which means any information they give you could be compromised. Lorenzo's smile faded. You think I haven't considered that? I think you're used to people not questioning your methods. Silence stretched between them, taut as a wire. Then Lorenzo laughed, genuine surprised. You're right. Most people just nod and say, yes, boss. He stood, pacing to the window. It's refreshing. Annoying, but refreshing.
Get used to it.
You hired me for my brain, not my obedience. I'm starting to realize that. He turned back, studying her with that intensity that made her pulse quicken. You're not afraid of me. I'm terrified of you, Clara corrected. I'm just more afraid of the Yakoviches. And I'm definitely more interested in finding out who killed my brother than in protecting your ego. Something flashed in Lorenzo's eyes. Approval? Attraction? Before she could identify it, he moved back to the desk. Then let's keep working. Show me what else you found. The hours blurred. They developed a rhythm. Clara would identify linguistic patterns. Lorenzo would connect them to operational intel. She'd challenge his assumptions. He'd push back with street-level reality. They argued about methodology, about risk assessment, about the difference between careful and paranoid. And slowly, Clara began to see past the reputation. Lorenzo de Luca wasn't just a mob boss. He was a strategist who thought 12 moves ahead. A leader who remembered every person who worked for him by name. Someone who'd built an empire not through random violence, but through calculated precision. Why did you really go into this life? She asked on the 6th night, over Chinese takeout at 11 p.m. Lorenzo paused, chopsticks halfway to his mouth. Curious question. You went to Yale. Business degree. You could have been legitimate. Who says I'm not? Your tax returns say you made $3 million last year from consulting services. Your actual income is probably 10 times that. Are you judging me, Clara? I'm trying to understand you. He set down the chopsticks. My father owned a restaurant. Small place in Little Italy. When I was 15, the Santini family decided they wanted protection money. My father refused. They burned the restaurant down with him inside. Clara's chest tightened. Lorenzo. The police did nothing. Said it was an electrical fire. But I knew. Everyone knew his voice was flat, emotionless, which somehow made it worse. So I learned their world, became better at it than they were. By the time I was 25, the Santini family worked for me. By 30, I controlled everything they'd ever wanted. And your father's restaurant? I rebuilt it, called it Rosso's. Hired the best chefs, the best staff. He looked at her. And every day it operates, I remember that the world doesn't care about rules. It cares about power. And I made damn sure I had enough power that no one could burn down anything I cared about again. Clara understood then. Lorenzo wasn't just a criminal. He was a survivor who'd weaponized his trauma into an empire. Just like she was trying to weaponize hers into justice for Danny. We're not that different, she said softly.
No.
We're not. Lorenzo held her gaze. Which is why this works. You understand what it means to be angry at the world. The air between them shifted, charged with something neither acknowledged. Clara broke eye contact first. The Alexei files. We should. Clara, Lorenzo's hand covered hers on the keyboard. Warm, steady. You can trust me. I know you don't want to, but you can. I don't trust anyone. Neither do I. Maybe that's why this feels, he trailed off. Dangerous? Clara supplied. I was going to say inevitable. His thumb traced a small circle on her wrist. But dangerous works too. She should pull away. Should remind him this was business. Should remember that Lorenzo De Luca was a man who made people disappear when they became inconvenient. But she didn't move. We should focus, she whispered. We should, Lorenzo agreed. Neither of them moved. Then his phone buzzed. The spell broke. Lorenzo checked the screen, and his expression hardened. Marco found something. Alexei made a withdrawal yesterday, 20,000 in cash. Same day Kozlov's crew hit one of my supply routes. Clara's mind snapped back to the work. Payment for information? Has to be. Lorenzo was already typing. I'm calling a meeting. Tomorrow night, all senior staff. We'll see how Alexei reacts when I announce we're changing all our communication protocols. You're going to spook him on purpose. I'm going to force him to make a mistake. Lorenzo looked at her. Think you can watch his reactions? Tell me if he's lying? People's faces don't lie the way words do.
But yes.
I can try. Then we have a plan. He stood, buttoning his cuffs. Get some sleep, Clara. Tomorrow, we start catching our rat. As he walked to the door, Clara called out, Lorenzo? He turned. Thank you for telling me about your father. His expression softened, just slightly. Thank you for not treating me like a monster. I didn't say you weren't a monster, Clara said. I just said we're not that different. Lorenzo's laugh was quiet, almost sad. Get some rest. That's an order. After he left, Clara sat in the dark office, her wrists still warm where he'd touched it. She was playing with fire. And the terrifying part was, she didn't want to stop. The meeting room was tense the next evening. 8 of Lorenzo's senior staff sat around the conference table, including Alexei Volkov, mid-30s, sharp-eyed, with the quiet confidence of someone who'd been trusted for years. Clara watched from the corner, supposedly there to take notes. In reality, she was studying every face, every micro-expression. We're implementing new protocols, Lorenzo announced, standing at the head of the table. All Russian communications cease immediately. We're switching to a rotating cipher system, changed daily. Clara watched Alexei. His expression remained neutral, but his left hand twitched, just once, toward his phone. Nervous tick, she noted. He wants to warn someone. Questions? Lorenzo asked. Marco, the security chief, nodded. Smart move, boss. When do we start? Tonight. I want all old frequencies shut down by midnight. Lorenzo's gaze swept the room. If anyone has concerns, speak now. Alexei finally spoke. What prompted this change? Operational security, Lorenzo said smoothly. We've gotten sloppy. Time to tighten up. The meeting adjourned. Clara followed Lorenzo back to his office, her mind racing. He knows something's wrong, she said once the door closed. Did you see his hand? He wanted to send a message. Then we watch him. Lorenzo pulled up the security feed. I have cameras on his office, his car, his apartment. If he makes contact with Kozlov. Clara's phone buzzed. She'd been given access to the intelligence monitoring system. A new intercept had come through, flagged as priority. She opened it, her heart sinking as she listened. Lorenzo, you need to hear this.
Now.
The audio file played. Two voices in Russian, discussing a meeting location, a payment, details about Lorenzo's next shipment. But what made Clara's blood run cold was the voice identification tag. Analyzed voice pattern, 87% matched to Petrov, Dmitry. That's impossible, Clara whispered. Lorenzo's face had gone stone cold. Dmitry Petrov, the arms dealer from Rosso's. He's been working with me for 2 years brokering weapons deals. If he's the mole... Wait, Clara replayed the file, focusing on the linguistic patterns. Something felt wrong. The phrasing is off. Listen, "Я передам информацию." The word order is technically correct, but... She played it 3 more times, making notes. Lorenzo paced like a caged animal. Clara, that's Dmitry's voice. The audio analysis confirmed it. I know what it says, but she stopped. Pulled up Dmitry's previous communications. Compared them side by side. And saw it. This is fake, she said quietly. What? Not the voice, that's real. But the conversation is spliced together. Look at the waveforms, she highlighted sections on the screen. These phrases are from 4 different recordings, edited to sound like one conversation. Whoever did this took Dmitry's actual voice samples and created a false confession. Lorenzo moved behind her chair, staring at the evidence. You're certain? Positive. The audio signature shows microgaps where the splicing occurred. And the language patterns, Dmitry uses informal constructions. This recording uses formal grammar throughout. It's like someone took a dictionary and tried to make him sound guilty. Then who? Lorenzo's phone rang. Marco. Boss, we have a situation. Just got intel that Dmitry met with Kozlov's people tonight. Multiple witnesses. Lorenzo's jaw clenched. Bring him in.
Now.
Lorenzo, wait. Clara started. But he was already moving, grabbing his jacket. If Dmitry's meeting with Kozlov, he's the leak. This audio is just confirmation. Or it's exactly what someone wants you to think. Lorenzo stopped at the door. Then explain the meeting. I can't. Not yet. But if you act on false intelligence. People die either way, Clara. Better his than mine. He pulled out his phone, made a call.
Marco.
When you find Dmitry, take him to the warehouse. I'll handle this personally. Clara's stomach dropped. Handle it? Lorenzo, you're talking about killing him based on manipulated evidence. I'm talking about eliminating a threat. His voice was ice. This is my world, Clara. Sometimes you don't get the luxury of being certain.
He left.
Clara stood frozen for 5 seconds. Then she grabbed her laptop and started working. The warehouse on the south side was the kind of place where screams wouldn't carry. Dmitry Petrov knelt on the concrete floor, hands zip-tied behind his back, Marco's gun pressed to his skull. Lorenzo stood in front of him, holding a printed transcript of the incriminating audio. You've been feeding Kozlov information for months, Lorenzo said, his voice dead calm. How much did he pay you? I don't know what you're talking about. Dmitry's English was panicked, his accent thicker under stress. Lorenzo, please, I swear. We have recordings. Your voice. Discussing my operations with Kozlov's people. That's impossible. I never. Lorenzo nodded to Marco. The safety clicked off. Wait. The voice came from the warehouse entrance. Clara ran in, laptop clutched to her chest, breathing hard. Don't shoot him. Clara, get out of here. Lorenzo's tone left no room for argument. Listen to me first. She opened the laptop, pulling up files. I cross-checked everything. The audio is fake, professionally done, but fake. And the meeting witnesses? I tracked down the source. It came from an anonymous tip to one of your street contacts. Someone planted that information. Why would someone frame Dmitry? Because he's close to you. Trusted. If you kill him based on false evidence, it creates exactly what the real mole wants. Chaos in your organization. Mistrust, Clara moved closer, her voice urgent. Think about it. Dimitri handles your weapons deals. If he's gone, who benefits? Lorenzo's eyes narrowed. Alexei. He's second in command on arms negotiations. And if Dimitri's dead, Alexei takes over the entire operation. Full access to shipments, routes, contacts. Clara pulled up another file. I found encrypted messages in the same audio splice patterns, all pointing to other loyal members of your crew. Lorenzo, the mole isn't just leaking information. He's systematically framing your people to tear you apart from inside. The warehouse went silent except for Dimitri's ragged breathing. Lorenzo looked at the evidence, then at Dimitri, then at Clara. If you'd listened less to loyalty and more to language, Clara said quietly, you'd have killed the wrong man. Lorenzo's hand rose. Marco lowered the gun. Cut him loose, Lorenzo ordered. Then he turned to Dimitri. I'm sorry. Dimitri collapsed forward, gasping. Madonna Santa. Lorenzo, I swear I never. I know. I believe you. Lorenzo helped him up personally, an apology in the gesture. Someone's trying to destroy us from within. And they almost succeeded. He looked at Clara. You saved his life. And probably mine. Killing Dimitri would have started a war with his family connections. Clara's hands were still shaking. Next time, maybe trust the linguist before you load the gun. Next time, Lorenzo said, I will. As they left the warehouse, Dimitri safely escorted home. Lorenzo caught Clara's arm.
Thank you, he said.
For not giving up. For pushing back even when I shut you down. Someone has to keep you from destroying yourself. Clara managed a weak smile. Besides, you're paying me $50,000. Might as well earn it. But they both knew it wasn't about the money anymore. It was about finding the truth before someone else died. And maybe, just maybe, it was about something neither of them was ready to name. Clara spread 3 white bards across Lorenzo's office wall, covered in linguistic patterns, timeline charts, and communication intercepts. It was 3 a.m. Neither of them had slept. He's smart, Clara said, tapping a marker against Alexei's message patterns. Every fake communication he's planted has been careful. Professional. But he has a tell. Lorenzo looked up from his laptop, exhaustion evident in his eyes. What tell? He overcompensates. She highlighted several phrases. Real informants are sloppy sometimes. They make mistakes under pressure. But Alexei's forgeries? Perfect grammar. Perfect syntax. Like a student trying too hard on a test. So we know it's him. But we can't prove it without catching him in the act. Lorenzo stood, rolling his shoulders. And if we confront him without proof, he disappears. Kozlov protects him, and we're back to square 1. Clara had been thinking about this problem for hours. Now, looking at the boards, an idea crystallized. What if we don't wait to catch him? She said slowly. What if we make him expose himself? I'm listening. We plant false information through the channels we know he's monitoring. But we make it big enough that he has to pass it along to Kozlov. Something too valuable to ignore. Lorenzo moved closer to the boards. A trap.
Exactly.
We create a fake intelligence report about a major arms deal. Make it look like you're moving serious weapons through the port, the kind of shipment Kozlov would kill to intercept. When Alexei takes the bait and passes the information, we trace how he makes contact. And then we catch him red-handed. With evidence even his lawyers can't explain away. Lorenzo was quiet for a long moment, studying the boards. Then he turned to face her, his expression unreadable. You're asking me to trust you with operational security. To let you create false intelligence that, if it leaks the wrong way, could expose my entire network. Clara met his eyes. Yes. No one outside my immediate family has ever had that kind of access. Not Marco. Not Dimitri. No 1. I know. If you're wrong, if this backfires, people die. My people. I know that too. Clara set down the marker. But if you keep doing things the same way, Alexei stays hidden. Your organization bleeds. Eventually, Kozlov wins, she paused. You hired me because I see patterns others miss. Now I'm asking you to trust that I can create a pattern Alexei won't be able to resist. Lorenzo walked to the window, hands in his pockets. Chicago glittered below, his city, his empire. Clara could almost see him calculating risks, weighing options, fighting against every instinct that told him trusting outsiders was weakness. My father used to say something, Lorenzo said quietly. Blood is the only currency that never devalues, he meant family. Loyalty. The inner circle, he turned back to her. But blood didn't stop the Santinis from burning him alive. And bloodlines didn't prevent Alexei from infiltrating my organization. Clara waited, knowing this moment was crucial. Your logic is flawless, Lorenzo continued. And I've watched you work for 9 days straight. You're meticulous. Brilliant. You think 3 moves ahead, he moved closer. But this isn't just about logic. It's about whether I can trust you when everything's on the line. Can you? I don't know, his honesty was startling. But I'm going to anyway. Because the alternative is letting fear make my decisions, and that's how empires fall. Relief flooded through Clara. Then let's build this trap. They worked through the night, crafting every detail. The fake intelligence would reference a weapons shipment arriving Tuesday at Pier 27, 50 crates of military-grade firearms, apparently sourced from Dimitri's connections. The payload would be worth $2 million on the street. We need the language to sound authentic, Lorenzo said, typing notes. Alexei will scrutinize every word. Then we use his own patterns against him. Clara pulled up previous intercepts. Look, he always uses specific code words for weapons. Merchandise for guns, containers for ammunition. We mirror his vocabulary so it feels familiar. And the timing. We plant the information tomorrow morning through 3 different channels he monitors. By tomorrow night, he'll have passed it to Kozlov. Lorenzo nodded slowly. I'll need to stage this carefully. Make it look real. Trucks at the pier, armed guards, the whole operation. Can you do that without alerting your whole organization? I'll use people I trust completely. Marco, plus 2 others who've been with me since the beginning, he looked at her. And you? You'll be monitoring communications in real time, tracking any transmissions that match our planted intelligence. Clara's pulse quickened. You want me in the field? I want you where you're most useful. If Alexei makes contact, you'll recognize his communication patterns immediately. Lorenzo's gaze was intense. This only works if we're both all in, Clara. No half measures. She thought about Danny, about the Yakoviches. About 9 days of unraveling codes and patterns, slowly understanding the criminal world that had killed her brother. She thought about Lorenzo, complicated, dangerous, but also honorable in his own twisted way. A man who'd just broken his cardinal rule because he trusted her intelligence more than he feared betrayal. I'm in, Clara said. Completely. Lorenzo extended his hand. Not a handshake this time, something more. An acknowledgement of partnership. Clara took it. Then let's write the message that brings him down, Lorenzo said. They sat side by side at his desk, laptop between them. Clara typed while Lorenzo dictated, blending her linguistic precision with his operational knowledge. Each word was chosen carefully, each phrase designed to trigger Alexei's greed and Kozlov's ambition. Dimitri confirms Tuesday delivery. Pier 27, 2,300 hours. 50 containers, merchandise as specified. Total value, $2 million street. Security minimal, skeleton crew only. Payment on receipt. Clara read it back. This will make Kozlov think he can hit the shipment with minimal resistance. That's exactly what I want him to think. Lorenzo's smile was predatory. And when he sends his crew to an empty pier, we'll know Alexei was the leak. Because only the mole would know about this shipment. What happens to Alexei then? Lorenzo's expression darkened. That depends on whether he cooperates. But either way, the leak gets plugged. Clara saved the document, her hands steady despite the weight of what they'd just created. This message would set everything in motion: exposure, confrontation, possibly violence. No turning back now, she said. No, Lorenzo agreed. But I'd rather move forward with you than stay safe and stagnant. Their eyes met, and Clara felt that dangerous current between them again, the one that had nothing to do with work and everything to do with two people who understood each other in ways that defied logic. We should get some rest, she said, though neither moved. Tomorrow's going to be intense. Lorenzo's voice was soft. Thank you for not just solving the puzzle, but for caring enough to make sure I didn't kill an innocent man. That's rare in this world. Maybe you're just used to the wrong people. Maybe his smile was genuine. Or maybe you're exactly the right person I didn't know I needed. Clara left before she could respond, before the moment became something neither of them could walk back from. But as she lay on the office couch, staring at the ceiling, she knew the truth. They'd crossed a line tonight. And tomorrow, when the trap sprung, there'd be no going back to who they were before. The planted message went out at 4 p.m. through 3 separate channels. By 6 p.m., Lorenzo's monitoring systems detected unusual communication activity on Alexei's phone, encrypted messages sent to an unknown number. He took the bait, Clara said, watching the data stream. He's contacting someone right now. Then we moved to phase 2. Lorenzo grabbed his jacket. We need to transmit the confirmation code from outside the building. Somewhere neutral, where Alexei's people can't trace it back here. Where? I have a secure location in Ukrainian village. Abandoned radio station. Old Cold War infrastructure. Perfect for a one-time transmission. Clara saved her files and stood. Let's go. Lorenzo's car was a black Mercedes, understated but powerful. He drove, navigating through evening traffic with practiced ease. Clara sat in the passenger seat, laptop open, monitoring for any sign that Alexei had escalated. You're quiet, Lorenzo said. Thinking. If Alexei passes this to Kozlov tonight, they'll have less than 24 hours to plan their move. They'll be rushed, sloppy. That's what I'm counting on. They crossed into Ukrainian village as twilight deepened into full darkness. The neighborhood was industrial here, warehouses and empty lots, the kind of area where business happened in shadows. The radio station was a squat concrete building with a rusted antenna tower. Lorenzo parked in the rear, killed the engine. 5 minutes, he said. Get the equipment ready while I... Headlights flared behind them. Lorenzo's hand moved to his jacket, to the gun Clara knew he carried. That's not one of mine. A black SUV blocked the alley exit. Then another appeared at the entrance. Lorenzo. Get down. The rear window exploded. Gunfire erupted, deafening in the enclosed space. Lorenzo threw the car into reverse, tires screaming. They knew. Clara shouted over the chaos. Someone told them we'd be here. Alexei must have people watching the building. Followed us. Lorenzo returned fire through the shattered window, his shots precise even while driving backward. More gunfire. The front windshield spiderwebbed. We're trapped. Lorenzo swerved, trying to find an escape route. Clara made a split-second decision. Switch with me. What?
Switch. Now.
She didn't wait for agreement. As Lorenzo ducked another volley of bullets, Clara grabbed the wheel, her other hand finding the gear shift. Lorenzo, reading her intention, slid toward the passenger seat while Clara climbed over him, a desperate, awkward tangle of limbs while bullets punched through metal. Clara dropped into the driver's seat, slammed the car into drive, and floored it. The Mercedes shot forward, not toward the blocked exit, but toward a narrow gap between two warehouses that Lorenzo would never have considered. Clara, that's too tight. Trust me. She angled the car perfectly, side mirrors scraping brick on both sides. The SUV behind them was too wide. It couldn't follow. She heard the crunch of impact as it tried anyway. They burst onto a side street. Clara whipped the wheel left, tires smoking. Where did you? Lorenzo grabbed the dashboard as she took a corner at 60 miles per hour. Hold on. The second SUV appeared ahead of them, trying to cut them off. Clara saw the intersection coming, a red light, cross traffic, and her mind calculated angles, speeds, gaps. She accelerated. Clara. She threaded the Mercedes through moving cars with inches to spare, horns blaring in their wake. The SUV wasn't as lucky. It T-boned a sedan, both vehicles spinning into a streetlight. Clara took 3 more turns, navigating through the industrial maze like she'd memorized every street. Neon signs from liquor stores and check-cashing places streaked past, painting the damaged car in shades of red and blue. Finally, she slowed, checking mirrors. No pursuit. She pulled into an empty parking structure, killed the lights, and sat breathing hard. Her hands were white-knuckled on the wheel. Lorenzo stared at her. How the hell did you learn to drive like that? Clara's laugh was shaky. My brother.
Danny.
Danny taught you evasive driving? Danny ran contraband for 18 months before the Yakoviches got him. Cigarettes, mostly. Sometimes pharmaceuticals. She finally released the wheel, flexing her fingers. He needed a driver he could trust. Someone who wouldn't panic if things went wrong. So, he taught his little sister. I wasn't that little. 23, working 2 jobs to put him through community college before he dropped out. The old pain surfaced. He'd pick me up at 2 a.m. We'd drive to Indiana, pick up the cargo, drive back before dawn. He taught me how to lose a tail, how to think 3 moves ahead on the road. Lorenzo touched the bullet hole in the dashboard, processing. You were his accomplice. I was trying to keep him alive. Thought if I helped him, I could control the situation. Make sure he didn't do anything stupid. Clara's voice cracked. Obviously, that didn't work. Clara. You're not the only one with a past, Lorenzo. She met his eyes. I'm not some innocent academic who stumbled into your world. I've been dancing around it for years. The only difference is you chose this life. Mine was chosen for me. Silence filled the car, broken only by their breathing and the distant wail of sirens. Lorenzo reached across, his hand covering hers. You saved our lives just now. You're welcome. I mean it. That driving, Clara, that was. He shook his head. You're full of surprises. Good surprises or bad surprises? I haven't decided yet, but his smile said otherwise. We need to move. Get somewhere safe. Assess the damage. Clara nodded, starting the engine. Your place or mine? Mine. It's fortified. And we need to figure out how Alexei knew we'd be at that location. As Clara navigated toward Lorenzo's penthouse in the loop, her mind raced. The ambush had been too precise, too well-coordinated. Only 3 people knew where we were going, she said. You, me, and... Marco. Lorenzo's voice went cold. I told Marco where we'd be. Asked him to run interference on the security feeds. Do you trust him? With my life. For 10 years, I've trusted him with my life, but doubt had crept into Lorenzo's voice. But then again, I trusted Alexei for 5. Clara's stomach sank. If Marco was compromised, if the leak went deeper than Alexei. We're on our own, she said quietly. Lorenzo pulled out his phone, hesitated, then put it away.
Yeah.
We are. He looked at Clara, really looked at her. Not the waitress, not the linguist, but the woman who'd just driven them through an ambush like a professional wheelman. You and me against whatever comes next, he said. Clara thought about Danny, about all the choices that had led her to this moment, sitting in a bullet-riddled Mercedes with a mob boss, being hunted by people who wanted them dead. You and me, she agreed. And somehow, despite everything, that felt right. They drove through neon-lit Chicago streets toward whatever came next, 2 people who'd stopped pretending they were anything other than partners in something dangerous and undeniable. The trap had been set. But now they were caught in it too. Lorenzo's penthouse occupied the top floor of a building he technically didn't own, at least not on paper. Floor-to-ceiling windows offered a panoramic view of Chicago's glittering skyline. Clara stood at the glass, still feeling adrenaline course through her veins. Behind her, Lorenzo was on his encrypted tablet, checking security feeds. The SUVs were registered to a shell company, he said. Same one Kozlov uses for his operations. So Alexei definitely tipped them off about our location. But how did he know?
Clara turned.
We were careful. Which means either my office is bugged, or someone I trust is feeding him information. Lorenzo's jaw tightened. I need to sweep the entire building. Quietly. Without alerting anyone. Clara's phone buzzed. An encrypted notification from the monitoring system she'd set up. Lorenzo. Look at this. She pulled up the message. Alexei had sent another communication, this time with GPS coordinates and a date. Tomorrow night. But what caught Clara's attention was the location. The Drake Hotel, she read. That's the Marconi Foundation Gala. Lorenzo leaned over her shoulder, reading the screen. Annual charity event. Every wealthy family in Chicago attends. Politicians, business leaders, old money. Why would Kozlov's people target a charity gala? Lorenzo's eyes widened. Because I'm hosting it. The Marconi Foundation. I'm on the board. It's one of my legitimate operations. He scrolled through the message. Alexei's telling them I'll be there.
Exposed.
Public place where they can't just shoot me without consequences. Clara's mind raced. So, what's their play? Information gathering, probably. Kozlov's been trying to identify my political connections for years. A gala like this? Everyone who matters will be in one room, Lorenzo paced. If he has people inside, they could photograph conversations, plant listening devices, even recruit new sources. Or, Clara said slowly, we could use it as our trap. The gala. We let Alexei think he's delivered valuable intel. Meanwhile, we're watching for whoever shows up to exploit it. Lorenzo stopped pacing. You want to go to the gala. I want to catch your mole in the act. And this might be our only chance. She pulled up a blueprint of the Drake Hotel on her laptop. Think about it. Alexei has already passed the information. Kozlov's people will be there, looking for opportunities. If we can identify them and trace them back. We expose the entire network, Lorenzo nodded slowly. But it's dangerous. They know what I look like. Security will be heavy, but if they're willing to risk an ambush, then we don't give them what they expect. Clara met his eyes. You said you're hosting. What's your role? I'm supposed to give a speech. Shake hands, make small talk with donors. So everyone will be watching you. Which means they won't be watching your advisor. Clara's heart hammered. I could move through the crowd, listen for Russian, watch for anyone paying too much attention to your movements. You're talking about going undercover at a high society event full of criminals and politicians. Clara, if they recognize you. They won't. I'm nobody to them. A waitress. A translator. That's our advantage. Lorenzo studied her for a long moment. You'd need the right clothes. Background story. Everything perfect. Then make it perfect. Clara stepped closer. You said you trusted me. Prove it. Something shifted in Lorenzo's expression, calculation giving way to something deeper. All right, he said. But we do this my way. Full protection, complete cover story. He checked his watch. The gala's tomorrow at 7. That gives us 20 hours to prepare. Then let's get started. By 6 p.m. the next evening, Clara barely recognized herself. The dress had arrived at noon, midnight blue silk that hugged every curve before flowing to the floor. A stylist had transformed her practical bun into soft waves that cascaded over one shoulder. Subtle makeup emphasized her gray eyes. She looked like she belonged in Lorenzo's world. Ready. Lorenzo appeared in the doorway, and Clara's breath caught. He wore a black tuxedo tailored to perfection, crisp white shirt, bow tie. But it wasn't the clothes. It was the way he carried himself. Dangerous elegance. Power wrapped in sophistication. Their eyes met in the mirror. You look, Lorenzo trailed off. Like someone who costs $50,000? Clara tried for humor. Like someone who could bring this entire city to its knees. His voice was low, intimate. Clara, if this gets dangerous, then we handle it together. She turned to face him. What's my cover? Clara Fontaine, consultant from New York. Expert in international markets. You're advising me on European expansion opportunities. Fontaine? French enough to be sophisticated, common enough to be forgettable, Lorenzo offered his arm. Ready to meet Chicago's elite. Clara took his arm, feeling the solid warmth of him through the tuxedo. Let's catch ourselves a mole. The Drake Hotel ballroom was a vision of old-world glamour. Crystal chandeliers cast warm light over hundreds of guests in evening wear. A string quartet played near a champagne fountain. Waiters circulated with hors d'oeuvres that probably cost more than Clara made in a week at Rosso's. Stay close, Lorenzo murmured as they entered. But not too close. We need to look professional. But as his hand settled on the small of her back, guiding her through the crowd, there was nothing professional about the heat that sparked between them. Lorenzo was immediately surrounded, politicians wanting face time, business leaders pitching deals, socialites seeking attention. He handled each interaction with practiced charm, all while keeping Clara subtly in his orbit. She played her role perfectly. The sophisticated consultant, offering insights in 3 languages, laughing at jokes from men who ran the city's legitimate power structures. All while scanning faces, listening to conversations, watching for anything out of place. Senator Williams, Lorenzo was saying to a silver-haired man. Have you met my advisor, Miss Fontaine? Clara shook the senator's hand, made appropriate small talk about trade agreements. But her attention was on 2 men near the bar, dark suits, careful eyes, speaking in rapid Russian. Her pulse quickened. She'd heard those voice patterns before. Excuse me, she murmured to Lorenzo. I need to powder my nose. His eyes asked, Did you find something? Her slight nod answered, yes. She drifted toward the bar, champagne glass in hand, positioning herself within earshot. Confirmed the target is here, one man was saying in Russian. 3rd floor, west corridor. Device is in place. And the extraction?
Midnight.
Back entrance as planned. Clara's blood ran cold. They weren't just gathering information. They were planning something bigger. She turned, searching the crowd for Lorenzo. Found him across the room, still surrounded by Chicago's power players. Their eyes locked, and she saw him read the alarm in her expression. He excused himself smoothly, moving toward her. We have a problem, Clara said quietly. They're not just here to watch.
They've planted something.
3rd floor, west corridor. Lorenzo's expression never changed, but his hand found hers. To anyone watching, it looked like an intimate moment between colleagues. A device. Listening equipment. Or worse, Clara squeezed his hand. Lorenzo, what's on the 3rd floor? His face went pale. Private meeting rooms. Where the real deals happen. Where I was supposed to meet with 3 city council members in an hour to discuss zoning approvals. Understanding crashed over Clara. It's not about gathering information. It's about eliminating you. Somewhere private, where they can make it look like an accident or a business deal gone wrong. And the meeting was arranged through Alexei, they said simultaneously. Lorenzo's grip tightened on her hand. We need to find that device.
Now.
Before. Mr. DeLuca. A jovial voice interrupted. A portly man in an expensive suit approached, hand extended. Wonderful turnout. The Foundation is grateful for your generosity. Lorenzo's mask slipped back into place. Thank you, Gerald. Have you met my advisor? Clara smiled, shook hands, made conversation while her mind screamed urgency. They were standing in a room full of Chicago's elite, surrounded by witnesses and security. And somewhere 3 floors above them, a trap was waiting to spring. The music swelled. Couples moved to the dance floor. Lorenzo turned to Clara, offering his hand. Dance with me? To anyone watching, it was romance. But Clara understood. On the dance floor, they could talk without being overheard. She took his hand, and he pulled her close as they moved into the waltz. We can't go up there alone, Lorenzo murmured against her ear, his breath warm on her skin. If it's an ambush. Then we spring it on our terms. Clara's hand rested on his shoulder, her body fitting against his like they'd done this 1,000 times. But first, we need to know who's controlling the operation. Their eyes met, Inches apart, the chemistry between them electric despite, or maybe because of the danger. Fine, Alexei, Lorenzo said softly. If he's here, we end this tonight. The music spun them across the floor, two people dancing on the edge of violence, wrapped in silk and secrets. And somewhere in the glittering crowd, a traitor was watching. The dance ended. Lorenzo escorted Clara off the floor, his hand still at her waist. They circulated through the crowd, playing their roles while searching for threats. Clara spotted him first. Alexei Volkov stood near the champagne fountain, impeccable in a tuxedo, laughing with a city councilman. He looked completely at ease, like he belonged in this world of wealth and power. There, Clara murmured. Lorenzo followed her gaze, his expression neutral. He's supposed to be coordinating security downstairs. Why is he here? Because he's not security tonight, Clara watched Alexei move through the crowd with practiced familiarity. He's managing the operation. They kept their distance, observing. Alexei checked his phone twice, smiled at passing guests, accepted a glass of champagne. To anyone watching, he was just another attendee enjoying the gala. But Clara noticed the pattern. Every 3 minutes, he positioned himself near the ballroom's east entrance. A perfect vantage point to monitor both the main floor and the private stairwell leading to the upper floors. He's watching the access points, Clara said, making sure everything goes according to plan. Lorenzo's jaw tightened. 10 years. I've known him for 10 years. Trusted him with communications, with codes, with the heart of my operation. I'm sorry. Don't be. You were right to question him. Lorenzo pulled out his phone, typed something quickly. Marco just confirmed. Alexei told him I wanted the 3rd floor security reduced tonight. Said I was having sensitive meetings and didn't want guards hovering. So Marco pulled the security. Marco follows orders. And Alexei's second in command. His word carries weight. Lorenzo pocketed his phone. We need proof before we move. Something undeniable. Clara studied Alexei across the ballroom. Then let's get it. They split up. Lorenzo moved toward a group of donors, drawing attention. Clara drifted along the periphery, champagne glass in hand, invisible in the way attractive women at galas often became, decorative background noise. She positioned herself behind a marble column near Alexei, close enough to hear but hidden from view. He was speaking quietly into his phone, voice barely above a murmur. Clara strained to hear over the string quartet. Russian. He was speaking Russian. She pulled out her phone, pretending to check messages while activating the recording app Lorenzo had installed. Target is still on the main floor, Alexei said. Estimate 30 minutes until the scheduled meeting. Team 2, confirm position on 3-inch. A pause as he listened. Good. Remember, it needs to look natural. Gas leak in the meeting room. Explosion contained to that floor only. Structural damage will support the accident theory. Another pause. Yes, evidence of faulty building maintenance. The hotel's inspection records will back that up. I already planted the documentation. Clara's blood turned to ice. Not just murder. A bombing disguised as an accident, with paperwork to support the cover-up. Alexei continued. Kozlov confirmed payment. $2 million on completion, split between the team. After DeLuca is eliminated, I take operational control, and we integrate with Kozlov's network. He laughed softly. 10 years of playing loyal dog finally pays off. Clara's hand shook as she stopped the recording. She had everything: motive, method, confession. Now she just needed to get it to Lorenzo, without alerting Alexei. She moved carefully through the crowd, heart pounding. Lorenzo was near the stage, talking with Senator Williams. She couldn't interrupt directly, without drawing attention. Clara grabbed a small program from a nearby table, pulled a pen from her clutch, and wrote quickly. Your man on the left near the fountain is the leak. Recorded confession. Play along. She folded the program, then approached a waiter. Excuse me, could you deliver this to Mr. DeLuca? He's expecting it. The waiter nodded, threading through the crowd. Clara watched Lorenzo accept the program, open it casually while maintaining his conversation. She saw the moment he read her note, a microsecond of tension in his shoulders, quickly suppressed. He continued talking with the senator, laughing at something, completely at ease. But his eyes found Alexei across the room. Lorenzo excused himself from the senator, moving with deliberate casualness toward the champagne fountain. He collected a glass, positioned himself near Alexei, but not directly beside him. "Alexei," he said warmly, "didn't expect to see you up here. Thought you were managing the security desk." Alexei turned, his smile perfect.
Boss.
"Everything's running smoothly downstairs. Thought I'd take a quick break, check out the party." He gestured at the crowd. "Impressive turnout. It is Lorenzo Sip Champagne. Actually, I'm glad you're here. I wanted to discuss the third floor arrangements. For my meeting." Clara saw Alexei's eyes flicker, just once. "Of course. What about them?" "The reduced security. I'm reconsidering." Lorenzo's tone was casual. "Too many important people here tonight. Makes me nervous having fewer guards upstairs." "I can restore full coverage if you want," Alexei offered. "But you specifically requested privacy." "Did I?" Lorenzo tilted his head. "Funny, I don't remember requesting that." The air between them changed. Alexei's smile stayed fixed, but his posture shifted slightly. "You told Marco." "Marco says you told him I wanted reduced security. But I never gave that order." Lorenzo set down his champagne glass with precise care. "So either Marco's lying or you are." Alexei's hand moved toward his jacket. "Boss, I think there's been a miscommunication." "Stop." Lorenzo's voice dropped to deadly quiet. "Don't insult my intelligence." Around them, the gala continued. Music, laughter, clinking glasses. But in their small circle, everything had gone still. "I know about the device upstairs," Lorenzo continued. "I know about Kozlov. I know about the $2 million and your plan to take my organization." Alexei's mask finally cracked. His eyes went cold, calculating. "You can't prove anything." "Actually, we can." Clara stepped out from behind the column, holding up her phone. "I have your entire conversation recorded. Planning a murder, discussing payment, detailing the cover-up. Want me to play it for Senator Williams over there? Or maybe we should take it directly to the FBI." Alexei's face went white. Lorenzo stepped closer, his voice soft but lethal. 10 years, Alexei. I trusted you with everything. Made you rich. Protected you. And you've been selling me out to Kozlov since the beginning? Not the beginning, Alexei said, and something like pride entered his voice. Just the last 3 years. Kozlov recruited me after you refused to partner with him. He offered me what you never would, respect. A real position, not just playing translator for your American operation. So this is about ego? This is about knowing my worth. Alexei's composure shattered. I built your communications network. I kept your secrets. And you treated me like hired help while you brought in outsiders. His eyes cut to Clara. And gave them access I earned. Lorenzo's laugh was harsh. You earned nothing. You sold out every man who trusted you. Got people killed. And for what? To play king with Kozlov. Security was moving toward them now, responding to the tension. Marco appeared, hand on his weapon. Boss. Marco's eyes locked on Alexei.
Take him, Lorenzo said.
Quietly. We don't make a scene at charity events. Alexei looked around wildly, at the guards closing in, at Clara holding the evidence, at Lorenzo's implacable expression. You can't touch me, he tried. Not here. Not with all these witnesses. Watch me. Lorenzo nodded to Marco. 2 guards moved in smoothly, gripping Alexei's arms. To the surrounding guests, it looked like associates escorting a drunk friend. They moved toward the service exit with professional efficiency. Alexei's last look at Lorenzo was pure hatred. Kozlov won't stop. Killing me won't end this. I'm not going to kill you, Lorenzo said quietly. I'm going to let you explain to the FBI why you planned to bomb a hotel full of politicians and donors. Let you spend the next 20 years in federal prison knowing you destroyed yourself. As they took Alexei away, Clara stepped beside Lorenzo. She could feel the tremor running through him. Rage, betrayal, relief. "It's over," she said softly. "Is it?" Lorenzo looked at the gala continuing around them, oblivious to what had just transpired. "Alexei's right about one thing. Kozlov won't stop." "Then we'll handle Kozlov too," Clara offered him her hand. "Together." Lorenzo took it, his grip strong and warm. "Together," he agreed. And for the first time in 10 years, Lorenzo de Luca allowed himself to believe that maybe trust wasn't always a weakness. Sometimes, it was the strongest weapon of all. The bomb disposal unit cleared the third floor at 11:47 p.m. 4 blocks of C4 wired to a timer hidden behind a decorative panel in the meeting room where Lorenzo was supposed to be. Clara watched from Lorenzo's office as emergency vehicles pulled away from the Drake Hotel, their lights painting the night in red and blue. "If you hadn't caught that conversation," Lorenzo said quietly behind her, "I'd be dead, along with 3 city councilmen and probably half the floor." "But you're not," Clara turned from the window. "And Alexei's in federal custody, singing like a canary about Kozlov's operations. Marco confirmed it an hour ago. Alexei's giving up everything: supply routes, personnel, bank accounts. He's trying to negotiate witness protection." Lorenzo poured 2 glasses of bourbon, handed one to Clara. "The FBI's dismantling Kozlov's network as we speak. By morning, the Russian operation in Chicago will be finished." Clara took the glass, their fingers brushing. "Then you won." "We won," Lorenzo raised his glass. "To brilliant linguists who see patterns in chaos. To mob bosses who actually listen." Clara clinked her glass against his. They drank in comfortable silence. Outside, Chicago glittered, still dangerous, still complicated, but slightly safer than it had been 12 hours ago. "What happens now?" Clara asked. Lorenzo set down his glass, moving to his desk. He pulled out a folder, opened it. "Your contract. Payment in full, $50,000 as promised. Plus a bonus for services rendered above and beyond." Clara looked at the check he slid across the desk. $75,000. "That's more than we agreed. You saved my life multiple times. Exposed a mole who'd been bleeding my organization for 3 years. Helped bring down my biggest competitor." Lorenzo's smile was slight. "I'd say you earned the bonus." Clara picked up the check, feeling the weight of financial freedom. No more debt. No more Yakoviches. No more scraping by on Waitress tips. "Thank you," she said, "for trusting me. For letting me help find Danny's killers. Alexei confirmed it, by the way. The hit on your brother. It was Kozlov's order, carried out by the Yakoviches." Lorenzo's voice softened. "Danny stumbled onto communications between Alexei and Kozlov. He didn't know what he'd found, but he tried to sell the information. They killed him to keep it quiet." Clara's eyes burned. "So, he died protecting your secrets without even knowing it." "I'm sorry. Truly." Lorenzo moved around the desk, standing close. "If I'd known, if I'd suspected Alexei earlier." "You can't change the past." Clara blinked back tears. "None of us can. We just learn from it and try to do better." Lorenzo was quiet for a long moment, studying her face. "I built this empire with fear," he said finally. "Reputation. Violence. Making people too scared to betray me. But fear doesn't create loyalty. It just creates better liars. Like Alexei. Like Alexei. He smiled for 10 years while planning my death." Lorenzo's jaw tightened. "You saved my organization with something I never valued enough: intellect. Understanding. Actually listening instead of just intimidating." Clara set down the check. "Then maybe you should build the next part differently." "What do you mean?" "You said your father told you blood is the only currency that never devalues. But blood didn't stop Alexei. Family connections didn't protect you." She stepped closer, holding his gaze. "Maybe trust isn't about blood or fear. Maybe it's about choosing people who see the world like you do. Who challenge you. Who make you better." Lorenzo's hand came up, almost touching her face, then dropped. "You're talking about a fundamental change in how I operate. I'm talking about evolution. You're smart enough to see the old ways aren't working. The city's changing. Law enforcement is getting better at tracking financial crimes. The FBI just dismantled Kozlov in 12 hours based on evidence from one informant. Clara paused. How long before they come for you? They've been trying for a decade. Because you've been careful. Strategic. But Lorenzo, how long can you keep doing this? 35 years old, and already looking over your shoulder constantly. Is this really what you want for the rest of your life? The question hung between them, heavy with implications neither wanted to fully examine. What do you suggest? Lorenzo asked. I can't just walk away from an empire.
No.
But you can transform it.
Slowly.
Legitimize more operations. Phase out the illegal ones. Use your intelligence and connections to build something that doesn't require armed guards and encrypted communications. She smiled slightly. You're already halfway there. The restaurants, the real estate, the foundation. Those are real businesses. With illegal money backing them.
For now.
But money laundering is just finance with different goals. You could go completely legitimate in 5 years if you wanted to. Lorenzo moved to the window, hands in his pockets. My father died because he wasn't strong enough to fight back. Everything I've built has been about making sure I'm never that vulnerable again. And now you're the strongest man in Chicago. So, what are you going to do with that strength? He turned to look at her. You should be a negotiator. Or a therapist. Maybe both. I'm a linguist who understands that words have power. And I'm telling you, you have the power to choose who you become next. Lorenzo crossed back to her, stopping close enough that Clara could smell his cologne, see the flecks of gold in his dark eyes. If I asked you to stay, he said quietly, to help me build that different future, would you? Clara's breath caught. Lorenzo. I know it's insane. I know we barely know each other. But these past 2 weeks, he shook his head. You understand me in ways no one ever has. You call me on my bullshit. You make me think differently. And I. He stopped, as if afraid to finish the sentence. Clara's heart hammered. Part of her wanted to say yes immediately. To stay in this dangerous, exciting world with a man who challenged her as much as she challenged him. But another part, the part that had watched Danny destroy himself, that had lived in fear of the Yakoviches, that knew the cost of this life, hesitated. Ask me again when you've decided who you want to be, she said softly. When you've started building that different empire. When you know for certain that you're choosing change, not just surviving another crisis. Lorenzo nodded slowly, understanding in his eyes. And if I do, if I actually change things, then maybe I'll have an answer that doesn't terrify both of us. He smiled, sad, genuine, hopeful. Fair enough. They stood there, inches apart, the weight of everything unsaid pressing down on them. Finally, Lorenzo stepped back. I meant what I said. Thank you, Clara, for everything. You're welcome. She picked up the check, tucked it in her clutch. And Lorenzo? For what it's worth, I think you're capable of more than you know. You just have to decide if you want it. She walked to the door, feeling his eyes on her. Clara? She turned. This isn't goodbye, Lorenzo said. Just temporary. We'll see, Clara replied. But she smiled as she left, hope and uncertainty warring in her chest. Outside Lorenzo's office, Chicago spread before her, a city of second chances and new beginnings. Maybe, just maybe, they both deserved one.